As we begin the final section of our book, you'll notice that this is Level 2, Unit 2, where we'll look at several chapters that will help us to manage and integrate data and the Excel environment. So you'll notice Chapter 5, we're going to look at some of the data analysis features. Allows us to analyze data within our worksheet or workbook. Chapter 6, we're going to look at how we can protect and then share workbooks. And we'll do some of that chapter. Some of it we're not going to be able to do just because of the way the computers, your home computer, are set up. So we'll have to kind of pick and choose in that chapter of what we do with sharing workbooks. Also, Chapter 7, we're going to take a look at macros. They have called that chapter Automating Repetitive Tasks, which essentially is creating macros. And then we'll also learn to customize Excel. And then in Chapter 8, we'll look at how we can import, export, and distribute data in Excel. So we're going to begin Chapter 5. As mentioned previously, we are going to learn some of the tools that are used for analyzing data within a workbook. And if you'll notice on page 149, we're going to, first of all, before we get to those data analysis features, we're going to take a look at the copy and paste feature. When you paste information or data from one area to another, the paste option has a lot of variety to it, and you'll see some of the ways that you can paste special information within a workbook. If you'll notice the first objective there, we're going to switch data arranged in columns to rows, and vice versa. You can do that vice versa too, but if you have information arranged in columns, you can convert that to rows and vice versa. We're also going to use the copy and paste function to perform a mathematical operation during a paste routine. And then the remaining objectives here, we're going to take a look at. These are the data analysis features. We're going to learn to populate a cell using GoalSeek, which is a data analysis feature. We'll learn to save and display various worksheet models using the Scenario Manager, which again, that's another data analysis tool. We'll create a summary report from that scenario that we created in the previous objective. And then we'll learn a little bit more about one variable and two variable data tables. And both of those type of data tables allow us to analyze various outcomes. And then we're going to view relationships between cells and formulas, and we'll use a tool again that will allow us to do that. We'll identify Excel error codes and then troubleshoot a formula using the formula auditing tools. We'll also learn to circle invalid data. For example, if you've set up a data validation for a certain field, we'll learn the computer will actually go and circle invalid data that's already been entered into those cells. And then finally we'll look at the watch window and use that watch window to track a value. So you may want to just read briefly through the paragraph at the bottom of page 149 that gives you an overview of what we're going to be covering in Chapter 5. And then on pages 150 and 151, you're going to see the model answers that we're going to be going through in Chapter 5. And then Project 1 starts us out using the Paste Special option features. And again, if you want to read through the last two paragraphs on page 151 on to page 152, gives you some of the options that you'll find in the Paste Special dialog box. And we're going to begin by using the Paste Special dialog box to transpose data. And I've opened the Precision ERP workbook already and have already saved it as Excel Level 2 Chapter 5 Project 1 as they've described on page 153. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this information that we see on our screen, and we're going to take the row headings and transpose those so that they become the column headings, and take the column headings, transpose those so that they become the row headings. And we're going to do that using the copy and paste feature. So the first thing that we're going to do is select A5 through F11, all of our data. And I'm going to put that in copy mode. Now you can do it however you want. I'm just right clicking and choosing copy. And then I'm going to paste it in cell A13. And I'm going to click up on the ribbon. Make sure that you're on the Home tab in the clipboard area. I'm going to click on the bottom portion of the Paste button, and you can see all the options for paste. And we're looking for transpose. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to press Escape to remove this floating marquee. But you'll notice what happens here. The row headings now have become the column headings, and the column headings have now become the row headings. And you can see immediately some advantages to this. If you wanted to add the software, hardware items, you could do that simply and add a total row. Makes a little bit more sense there. Also, if you wanted to do some filtering, you could find all of the companies who have a term of 5 and you could immediately filter those out. So there is an advantage of sometimes switching what you originally had for columns and making those row headings. So once we've done that, they do want us to remove these blank rows. We're going to, not blank rows, but the rows that we copied from. And we're going to take rows 5 through 12, just selecting those and right-clicking and choosing delete. And that'll leave us with just the information that we pasted to. When you do that, notice rows 1 through 4, that would all need to be re-merged. And I'm going to do that just so that you'll know that that probably needs to be done. See the extra column hanging out here. You do need to go back and make sure that the formatting's correct once you've made some adjustments. You already know that probably. I'm just going to click off the Merge and Center, re-merge and center these. Alright, so now we've got the headings, the titles over each of the headings now. And they would also like for us to do some other formatting. I'm not going to necessarily do that. They're suggesting that we add a thick bottom border between, well, A3 and A4. We can do borders later. You know how to do borders. They also want us to right align the labels. I can do that real quick here, so that they're aligned over the information in those columns. And then what they would like for us to do, and I would like to do this, as I mentioned previously, you can now use this as a data list or as a database, because we have field names at the top. These could be our records as our rows. And so what we're going to do is filter out. Let's find all the companies or vendors who have a 5-year contract, and that's what this term is, our contract years. So the first thing we have to do is apply our filtering. So I'm going to select the area that we'd want to apply filtering to, and then if you'll recall, under the Data tab in the Sort and Filter group, I'm going to click on Filter. Notice that puts the little drop down arrows to the right of each of the fields. And then if we want to pull out all those that have 5, click on the drop down arrow. I'm going to click on the Select All to deselect all the check marks, and then I'm just going to choose 5. And then down at the bottom, I know you can't see this, but at the bottom of that menu, we'll click OK. And now we can immediately see how many companies or vendors have the 5-year contract. Okay? And then we can pull those back. We can click on the filter button there, clear filter from term. Alright, next we're going to take a look at doing some calculations while we copy and paste. This would be under the circumstance or condition that you don't necessarily need a function or a formula within a cell. But it's actually going to calculate, I'm going to say in midair. And what we want to do is we're going to take the company's term contract and we're going to multiply that times the maintenance amount, and we want that to reside then in cell D6. So it's going to be the maintenance times 5, maintenance times 4, maintenance times 5, but we want the results to be back, and it'll override actually what we have in column D. And I'm going to save before we do this just so that you can see what's going on here. But we're going to take each of their contracts, their terms for the contract, so I'm going to select those years, F6 through F10. I'm going to put it in copy mode. And then where we want to multiply and paste them to is D6. So what's going to happen is it's going to take 5 times the 22,500. 4, well, when we paste down it, we'll do this. 4 times the 21,675. Okay? So I'm going to again go to the Home tab, click on the bottom portion of the Paste button, and this time we're going to go to Paste Special. That'll bring up the Paste Special dialog box, and you can tell in there we can multiply, add, subtract, divide numbers as we copy and paste. And in this particular situation, we want to multiply. So I'm going to click on the multiply option and click OK. So it took 5 times the original amount there and multiplied all those in midstream. I'm going to press the escape button to get rid of the floating marquees. And now if you click in any of these cells, notice there is not a formula in there. Okay, these are just raw numbers that they've are the values that they've put into those cells. So if there's an occasion where it doesn't matter if you know what the function is, or maybe you don't want to take up an extra cell or column to put in the calculation, you can certainly use the mathematical operation while you paste. There are other paste special options that they talk about in the middle of page 155, and you can experiment with those as you like, but they do have some pretty neat features that it saves you time essentially in doing that. One of them that I was thinking of is if you have a validation rule being applied to a field already, you can copy that validation to another field if necessary. So they do have some really neat features within the copy and paste special option.